We are live. Welcome to my video. This is going to be my thoughts on the Twilight saga Eclipse, the 2010 movie, the third Twilight movie. And yeah, first there will be a spoiler-free review that will only spoil the first two books and movies. Then I will get into a spoiler-written thoughts section, but I will verbally warn before I spoil any part of this particular movie. So, I think I will start by noting, as usual, this is a quite strong adaptation. Certain things are changed. The books are told, at least these first three, are told entirely from Bella's point of view. If she doesn't see it or hear it, neither do we, the reader. Whereas these movies will actually show things that, you know, usually the reader can deduce must have happened sometime, or it's, you know, described to Bella and thus the reader by characters who can tell it happened, maybe were even there. And yeah, as per usual, it leads to more build-up towards the, you know, violent conflicts, and that's especially true here. Let's see. Another, almost done with the adaptational talk. The way that they'll, you know, trim down certain things, and yeah, they continue to make good choices about what they can trim down, what to omit entirely, and yeah, you know, the book, I listened to the audiobook. That is 16 hours. The movie is 2 hours. That's an eighth. And they added some stuff as well. So yeah, and yeah, as per usual, I don't know why I always feel the need to specify, but obviously yes, when it's a book you have to describe every single thing, whereas in a movie you can show a lot of things that you know, you might spend a page of a book describing a thing, and then in the movie you can see it within a few seconds. But yeah, strong adaptation. And I've heard some say, oh, this is like the middle chapter, not a lot happens. I suppose I can't really argue that, but I do still think they do a really good job. You know, each of these I like better than the last. Now, this was directed by David Slade, who also did 30 Days of Night, and you can tell in a good way. There is a little bit more action here, and it's very well handled. Among other things, there is a foot chase, which makes good use of the fact that this is really the first time, and this is, I'm not the only person who says the following. Let's see. One of the people on the commentary track, I forget exactly who, but yeah, the speed running looks really great in this one. It was always a little awkward in the first two, but yeah, I think they knew they had to get it right for this one because there is more action, and it makes good use of the fact that the vampires can move faster than human beings can. While the first film was very much about Edward and Bella, the second was about Jacob and Bella. In this one, she spends time with both of them, at times even at the same time, and this allows them to further develop the love triangle, and in a different way, and I think it works quite well. And you know, I don't know how much I'm going to talk about the love stuff. I understand the criticisms of it, especially the ones from my fellow lefties. I don't really disagree that it is a problematic romance. That is actually a really good time to note. When I'm doing these videos on Twilight, I'm trying to not just, on the one hand, reiterate a lot of what's been said. You know, I'm getting this movie 15 years after it came out, a lot has already been said. That's one thing. Another thing is, I don't really want to do super negative videos anymore. I want to try to talk about the positives and things I just find interesting. Like these days, I try to make it that when I'm saying something negative, it's about like conservative politics or like real life stuff that, frankly, I just think is more worth getting angry about than media. You know, yeah, I realize this is very different from how I used to make videos. But there will be some links in the description box to videos by leftists who are incredibly talented. And yeah, there are various videos on the Twilight movies. Do note, I forget if it's all of them, but at least some of them, you know, do spoil all 5 movies, not just these first 3. Now, right, there was one more thing about this as an adaptation. The fact that this doesn't only follow Bella, you know, means that, you know, there's a character that appears in the book, but their role is greatly expanded in this movie in a very effective way, and I don't think I want to give away who. You know, you'll be able to, in the spoiler-free section, I mean, you'll be able to tell pretty quickly, but yeah. Now, let's see. Yeah, so, you know, as mentioned, this is my favorite of these first 3. Haven't watched the last 2 yet. Unlike every single professional critic out there who also prefers this one to the first 2, I'm not going to make some kind of insulting statement about how choosing which of the 3 movies is best is like making some choice between 3 different terrible things. Like, for some of these, it just feels like I am not one of those people who say, oh, critics just want to hate every movie they watch or something. But for some of these, it does feel like they almost feel insulted that, you know, they because they care a lot about movies and they feel like these movies are not very good. That it just, yeah, I don't know. It just feels kind of immature to me to be like this thing of like you can't say something positive about something you don't like without also like insulting it. It has to be a backhanded compliment. I don't know. I try to avoid that personally. Yeah. Let's see. Right, the plot has a very strong sense of danger, escalates gradually over the course of the film, and the plot starts immediately. It really hits the ground speedrunning to a greater extent than the first 2, and the threat is greater than in the first 2 in a way that feels organic. Like, it doesn't feel like Stephenie Meyer just kind of panicked and was like, I don't know, we gotta make it big. You know, this is the kind of thing that the first 2, like, I don't know how much of this, you know, of the book of this she had planned when she made the first 2. From what I understand, when she wrote the first one, she wasn't originally intending to make sequels. In fact, at the very start, she wasn't intending to have anybody else actually read it. It was just something she wanted to do for herself, and then she was convinced to, and so just keep that in mind. If you're like, you know, she's terrible, she ruined, you know, books and movies and vampires. She originally just wrote this, you know, story for herself, and then, anyway. Yeah, so, you also should not hate young women for loving this. You should be, like, frustrated with all the culture that limits, you know, what young women are allowed to like. Anyway, yeah, I think, actually, yeah, I think I did make my point about this one also has some really compelling backstory, including some that explains why Rosalie is so cold, pun intended, towards Bella. I am far from the first to point it out, but yeah, I too would very much like an entire book and or movie purely about Rosalie's background, please and thank you. Now, let's see. Yeah, the music captures the mood quite well. And yeah, the cinematography and editing, you know, the action is very well captured, and it does also work for the more like quiet scenes. And let's see, the special effects are gradually improving. I already mentioned the speed running. This also has better effects on the werewolves. And yeah, I felt like the action scenes, there's a decent enough variety to them, considering, you know, it ultimately there are only so many things they can do with what they have here. And let's see, I suppose that does cover the review itself. So let us dive headfirst into the spoiler section. Just gonna note how far into the video that starts. There we go. So from here on out, there will be spoilers for this entire movie. You know, if you at all care about, you know, I would definitely say this is one you'll want to go into without knowing spoilers. I mean, I'm glad I read listened through the book first. But oh right, yeah, this was meant to go in the review itself. As with the first two, if you like the book, I recommend the movie. If you like the movie, I recommend the book. So yeah, spoilers. Great tension in the opening. I quite appreciate how much screen time Riley gets. You know, let's see, right, and yeah, in this first scene, you know, I think it works quite well. The fact that the people who could save Riley are so close, but just can't quite hear him. It's very effective, very disturbing. Like, I don't know how much of that was like in the script and how much of it was like David Slade being like, "Oh, we gotta really capitalize on this," you know. He does like vampires, and he's really good at making them intense and scary. Let's see, but yeah, you know, over the course of the movie, we get to spend some time with Riley. That in the book, like, it's pretty much just he shows up near the end, and you know, we're told about him being out there, but yeah. You know, if you've watched the movie but not read the book, you know, you know that eventually Riley and Bella come face to face. That's where he appears in the book. And let's see, yeah, we see Riley and other newborns, you know, including this young woman who seems shocked and explains it's because she really badly wants to visit Silent Hill. It took Alice until the last second before she could tell they had to go left to catch Victoria. Maybe what threw her off is that they recast the part. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. Big fan of, I'm just going to make absolutely sure I get her name right, because she does not deserve the disrespect of getting it wrong, and for some reason it's not on the first. I don't know, I guess these others have more screen time, but her name, yeah, Bryce Dallas Howard. Thought that was it, wanted to make sure. Emmett's leap during the foot chase felt very true to his character. Very much the Emmett MO. IMO. Very sweet moment between Bella and her mom. The talk about magnets and the intensity of Edward's love for Bella. When Bella's mom gets her a present, she says congratulations, making a pun of the words congratulations and graduation. And the poor Danish subtitler, I can practically sense them just throwing their hands in the air and saying, I cannot think of a way to translate effectively into Danish, so they just wrote congratulations. I suppose it's possible that they missed the pun. Riley is genuinely effective as this intense newborn leader. Like, every time I see him, I'm like, holy crap! I am really glad that I am not the one he's after. I really enjoyed the training montage. First thing we see is Emmett having been thrown through the air, landing, getting up, saying, "Throw me again!" He remains one of my absolute favorite characters of this series. It was also great when he and Bella talk about her as a newborn. You know, some great lines there. He's such an older brother to Edward, and just yeah, the thing about, you know, what was it? You know, you're gonna be a badass newborn. You know, you're gonna be able to fight off just about anyone. And she's like, maybe I could even fight you. And just, you know, love it. Just yeah. She picks up on what he's putting down and builds on it wonderfully. And his reaction to that, he's not like, what? Where did that come from? He's like, ah, she's so cool. Bro, you found such a great girl. You know, just, yeah, love it. Also really enjoying more Jasper. Jackson Rathbone was one of the, I suppose I can't even say few, but he was one of the actors of this franchise that I knew before this, so glad to see him get more lines, more to do here. I especially liked when he's giving directions and he says, you know, the two most important things, and after number 2 he gets the most important thing. Always keep in mind, if you're in a nightclub and a girl introduces herself as Zoe, do not under any circumstances say, oh, like the movie Killing Zoe. Great flirty energy when Jasper and Alice fight. She's also one of my favorites. She's just so, just, yeah, and it even ends with a kiss. And then Bella's the one who's like, get a room, you two, when earlier, you know, she was the one kissing Edward and Jacob was uncomfortable, so that's a fun little, yeah. So the following is not me expressing my personal opinion. I'm just noting that Stephenie Meyer, in at least some ways, is conservative, and she apparently thinks that if vampires did exist, at least one of them would be fighting for the Confederacy. Just gonna leave that there. Excuse me. The proposal is genuinely quite sweet. So sweet, it got me all choked up. Let's see, and yeah, the thing, you know, decisions. Another of my favorites. Just, yeah, holy crap, where is, I'm just gonna make sure to find, oh, there's shit, yeah, Dakota Fanning as Jane. Just, yeah, love the whole conversation there, the exchange between the, you know, the Vulture-y. And Jane points out Arrow's decisions are being carefully monitored, so even in universe, no one can take their eyes off the brilliant Michael Sheen. And let's see, what was the other thing that I wanted to, let's see, it brings us, I guess I'll just briefly say, so, yeah, very uncomfortable when Jacob kisses Bella when she didn't, you know, consent to it. And, you know, some of the videos that I linked to in the description box, from what I recall at least, talk about the fact that later she kisses him, you know, and yeah, so I won't go into detail about that. Yeah. I do appreciate that they toned that down from the book, where, like, Jacob is, like, laughing at her afterwards, and when Charlie, another of my favorites, hears about the kiss, at first he's like, I forget if he literally does high-five Jacob, but, like, practically, at least. Or impractically? Anyway. So, yeah. Glad that was toned down. Right. The speech, hold on. So many characters. I cannot remember all these names. Jessica. Anna Kendrick, also one of my favorites. Actually, yeah, I'm not sure I've seen her in very much that isn't Twilight. Like, I think it's basically Twilight and End of Watch, but I adore her in End of Watch. Like, the scene where she and Jake Gyllenhaal are singing along to the song on the radio, or, yeah, radio, whatever, Just, they're so adorable together. Anyway, let's see. I think that might more or less right. Yeah, Alice's glee at getting to, oh, can I plan the wedding, and these various, yeah. Let's see. Honestly, when I listened through the book, I wasn't sure how much they were gonna have of Rosalie's backstory because PG-13 and everything. But yeah, they managed to get as much in there as like they could get away with at all. Very, very impressive. There was also more blood when Bella cut herself to distract than I would have thought you could get away with on a PG-13 back then. But yeah, right. The thing about she's like, I got back at them one by one, and I saved him for last, so he would know I was coming, and the cops outside, and then she takes them out, off screen. But yeah, opens the door, she's there in like a wedding dress, and she's like, that's very dramatic back then. I'm sorry, that's awesome. Just such a morbid joke. Love it. If she does ever decide to leave the Cullen family, I'm pretty sure she'd fit in wonderfully in the Addams family. Like, Morticia would ask her to retell the story of revenge until she got sick of telling it. Now, let's see. I think that does more or less. Yeah, I thought of, Rosalie explaining about, that's why I don't, she hates that Bella is choosing to be a vampire. And also the line with, why do you hate me so much? I don't hate you. I don't exactly like you. Just, yeah. I think that might... Let's see. I feel like there's at least one other thing about... I think... what needs saying about what ContraPoint's deliciously nicknamed the Cuck Tent has already been said really well by fellow leftist YouTubers. I will say, like, it did look incredibly cool. Like, I was half expecting, a penguin to walk into frame at some point holding up a sign about, not wanting Trump's tariffs. If that doesn't get MAGA to acknowledge that he's incompetent, I genuinely don't think anything will. Like, he legit put tariffs on somewhere that has a population of 0. Like, just, yeah. I'm sorry, I cannot think of a gaffe by any leftist that's even remotely to that level. Now, I think that does... Right, I thought they did a really good job demonstrating how dangerous and out of control the newborns are. Like, at one point we're literally seeing, they turned a car over and they're, like, just attacking everyone. And Riley does say, you have to control yourself more than, really, really nicely done with making, underlining. Because, again, in the book is great, but in the book, we're mostly just told, yeah, the newborns are completely out of control. And here we're seeing as much as they can show. Again, PG-13, vampires is always going to be difficult to get. But I thought they really got across, yeah, these are extremely dangerous, and yeah, I mean, in the first two, it's mostly just like, let's see, in the first one, there's 3 that are dangerous, and by the end, it's really the one that, James. Then the second one, there's some with the Volturi, there's multiple there, but it's, yeah, by this one having this many, and we're told they're super dangerous, and then having them fight werewolves, like, holy crap, just, yeah. And that's also, they're able to get away with a lot because of the whole thing with, they basically, like, a dead vampire, it's like with marble kind of thing, it's not, they don't bleed blood, so yeah, there's some breaking off of limbs, snapping off of heads, and yeah, some really, really great stuff. I'm not gonna go, I know I don't need to give you a full play-by-play, but there was some really, really great, yeah, and super tense there at the end when Jacob jumps in and gets hurt, and they have to re-break his bones. Like, holy crap. Now, I think that does pretty much. So, yeah, I think that gets us very nicely all the way to the last chunk of the movie. I think I've said everything. I'm just gonna real quick mentally go over right, yeah, Bella and Charlie, the talk, and oh my god, Dad, I'm a virgin. I didn't hear that, but I'm glad, just yeah. And let's see, yeah, and the thing with, Charlie's like, he sure is punctual. Now he's too punctual. Where were you? I was out with Jacob. Oh, that's good. Just, yeah. And let's see. I think that might more or less get us to the right. Also, a very charming scene when the classmates are talking, working on the speech, and then Jessica says, it's garbage, and we'll come up with something else, something that's not so cliche. And it's one of those things where the speech, like, it works, like, thematically, this thing of, you have to go out and make mistakes, try not to, be careful not to rush into things. And it is also something that a graduating, someone graduating high school would give as advice and would be positively received by the other graduating high schoolers in attendance. Sometimes I'm just a big softy. I very much liked when Bella's getting her diploma and Charlie gets out. Yes, he's just so happy for her. It's great. Let's see. Right. I didn't hate it in the book, but I do think just completely omitting this thing of, because in the book, Bella notices, some stuff has, there's a shirt is missing, and there's some stuff that's been messed around with, and for a while she thinks, Alice was, let's see, yeah, I think for a while she's not sure, and then she thinks, maybe Alice, when she got, bed sheets for when Bella was going to sleep at the Cullen place, and then after a while she talks to Edward, and it comes out, no, that wasn't Alice, and then they realize, it must have been, one of the newborns. And here we just see it, and Edward is immediately like, there was a newborn here. It worked in the book. I think it would have been too, yeah. And also just, I'm sorry, seeing this creepy guy go up and, like, touch her stuff is like, stop that, please, like, he's one of those antagonists we love to hate. We just want to see him stopped, like, and they do such a great job because there is a tragedy to him at the start. He's just a human being who's bitten, and the fact that we don't even really see it. We just see there's something moving, and he gets up and he's been bitten, and it's just such a great, we know immediately what that means. And he clearly doesn't, which, understandably, because most humans in the world of Twilight have no idea about vampires. Now, I think that might just about get us to... Right, Emmett also had some great, like... I want to say, is it like linebacker or quarterback? Just like yeah, the way he moves and attacks and such, really great. I'd like to see more stuff with Kellen Lutz. I'm just really digging his screen presence in these movies. I haven't actually watched Immortal since it first came out. Maybe I should watch that movie again. I think I liked it pretty fine. And certainly he's in it. Yeah. Anyway, I think that does get us very nicely to the last chunk of the movie. Yeah. Let's see. We have the they managed to capture. I forget if her name is said on screen, but according to the credits, it is Bree. The character played by Jadelle Ferland. And yeah, Jane shows up. I appreciate the thing about the Vulture won't honor the treaty. That was also, I 100% get why the werewolves hate vampires. And I know I'm not the first person to say it, but it did tickle my Elmo, which sounds like a very dirty thing someone, perhaps Scottish, would say when trying to flirt, if they are, I don't know, furry? Does that make sense? Anyway, it did tickle me that Bella specifically, she's talking to the werewolf, and she specifically said, stay. She didn't say don't leave, she said stay. Sit. Do you need walkies? And Jane shows up, and that was also great, because we see her before the end. We get another of her using the when she says Arrow has his, his thoughts are being, his decisions are being monitored. Just yeah. And it's so wild because I have seen some of the stuff she did when she was like a kid, and she was just this adorable little charming precocious kid, and then she grows up and takes roles like this. I know not every role she's taken other roles as well, though she was kind of intense in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as well. Anyway, but yeah, she and the thing about she's getting information out of Bree, and she's like, why did you come? And Bree has to tell her the truth. They didn't invite me back for the second Silent Hill movie. But the thing about it, you don't have to use your powers. She'll tell you anything, and Jane just says, I know. This is, because the cruelty is the point. It's not a bug, it's a feature. She is purposefully causing harm in this very sadistic manner, just because she can, because she feels like it, Which, yeah, I would say I hope she never becomes like the leader of a country, but Trump is in his second term. I'm sorry, I really shouldn't compare the two. That is honestly very, very insulting to Jane. But yeah, and the thing about, it's very interesting that you're still human. We set a date, which is, I kind of love. I mean, we set a date. Normally that's for like wedding, but she's talking about being turned into a vampire. That's, yeah. Do they have a registry for that too? Because like there's clearly certain things that like newborn vampires could do well with, so yeah. Now the when Bryce Dallas Howard appears near the end of the film, the ferocity of her performance perhaps especially once Bella cuts, you know, like, holy crap, like, I've seen Bryce Dallas Howard play way more chill characters than this. Watching that bit of her performance, I did start to wonder, are we 100% certain that she is not an actual vampire and she's just been hiding it extremely well for all these years, like multiple decades? Because, like, holy crap, like, I got flashbacks to when, you know, Lindsay Ellis said, you know, Fairuza Balk might literally be, you know, disturbed when she's, like, unleashing havoc in the craft. Yeah, if Bryce Dallas Howard is a vampire, does that mean that Ron Howard is a vampire? Because I've heard a lot of his movies described as lifeless. Does that mean that, like... I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Okay, I'll have it momentarily, I swear. If IMDb is willing to actually work. Does that mean that Clint Howard is a vampire? Is that why he's such a wonderful weirdo? I'm just saying it would explain a lot. Now, I think that might just about cover... I understand some people are apparently of the opinion that there are too many shots of Edward and Bella in the, you know, the flowery field. I don't know. As long as it's so freaking romantic, I really don't mind at all. Yeah, I think that does cover... Yeah, also really great when the thing about, you know, we offered her asylum. That was not your offer to make. Felix, dispose of it. You know, it's not even like her, but it, because newborn without, you know, permission. And she didn't choose that. You know, Bree had no control over that happening, and Jane knows that. You know, it's like Bella's like one of the few who choose the vampire life. You know, for most of them, they're like, it chose me.